welcome to Dawn's Dirt. Dirt can mean gardening, dirt can mean chickens, dirt can mean politics, dirt can mean religion, dirt can mean anything I want it to mean, because this is Dawn's Dirt, and I'm Dawn, your host. Anyways, welcome here today. I'm going to talk today about chickens, and I'm actually going to share about my story and what I'm up to on my own little homestead this year. And so in this episode, we're going to talk about meat birds and laying hens. We're going to talk about my business plan and how I just want to get back into farming and, all the ins and outs of what I'm doing on my little homestead this year. And so, yeah, welcome to the episode, and super excited that you can join us. And I hope you can take some tidbits away from this on chickens. And so here we get into it. So as most of you know by now, I sold my 36,000 square foot greenhouse with my 20 acres of garden. I did lots and lots of farmers markets. I did $1 million in sales. Just a little recap of where I came from. I was a vegetable farmer, but on my vegetable farm, I actually had 35 ewes, so sheep, and I also had 299 laying hens. And it was just a nice little addition. The eggs that I produced were just a great little addition to the offerings that I had at my farmers markets. And when I had my empire, when I had my farm, my chickens actually ate all the scraps that I had from my farm. And so people, went crazy for my eggs because I had those nice dark orange yolks. And so people would always ask, why do you get those dark orange yolks? And I said, it's all in what you feed them. When I had my farm, I fed my chickens vegetable scraps. They got tomato scraps, and they got all the things that I couldn't sell at a farmer's market, or the scratch and dent ones. And so what you feed a chicken actually determines the yolk color. And so my brown laying hens gave me eggs that were super fresh and had those really nice dark orange yolks that people are after. Grocery store eggs have really yellow yolks, and that's because those chickens are inside. They're not being fed organic scraps, vegetables or grass clippings or things like that. They're not foraging for bugs. And so, yeah, that's where I came from. And I've also done on my former farm, I've done meat birds over the years. So I always grew the Cornish Giants meat birds, and I sold them. I sold them off to friends and family. I did them on a smaller scale. I think one year I did meat birds just to sell at my local stores that I owned as well. But yeah, chickens were kind of a side gig when I had my farm. Now, after I sold my farm, I moved to this little property. I have access to about an acre of property here. And I thought to myself, man, what am I going to do? And all I know how to do is farm. I got fired from a couple of jobs. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I got fired from a couple of jobs. Me working for someone else is just not going to work. I have too strong of a personality, too many opinions, and I'm got too big of a mouth. And so I got fired from a couple jobs. And so I just decided I just need to get back into farming. Now, vegetables for me are not really an option because I'm not allowed to grow and sell vegetables in the province of Alberta for 5 years as my non-compete clause as part of the sale of my farm, which is fine. But farming is so much more than just vegetables. I know how to do vegetables. I'm very good at vegetables, but I also know a lot about animals, and I know a lot about chickens particularly. And so I thought, with my small property here, I thought, man, how am I going to get back into farming? And so, yeah, this year I have 150 laying hens. So I bought my hens in at 12 weeks old. And they started producing right away, producing eggs here in April, late April, early May. And I will have up to 700 meat birds this summer. And so meat chickens, Cornish giant meat chickens. And so that's where I'm headed is if I can't do vegetables, I may as well do chicken. And I've got some goats and some pigs too. I'm just experimenting with that. But yeah, I am going to be a chicken farmer. I went from being the tomato lady to now I'm the egg lady. And so it's been pretty fun at farmers market selling my eggs to the customers. And this week starting, I will have some whole meat birds to sell at the farmers markets as well. So just a little update on where I am and what I'm doing in my world and how I'm going to get back into farming. Once you've been a farmer, it's just in your blood. It's who you are as a person. And so, yeah, I'm just getting right back into it because that's all I know is how to be a farmer. So first, I want to talk about the infrastructure that I have on my place. So I have a little mobile home here on this property that I don't own, that I'm renting. And I ended up thinking to myself, I don't really want to put up a barn because it's not really my property and I don't really have the cash flow or the money to put up a barn. And so I was listening to some podcasts from Joel Salatin. I don't know if you know him or not. Joel Salatin is he is like the crazy lunatic farmer from the United States. I've actually met the man. I was speaking at a speaking engagement, I want to say 10 or 12 years ago here in the town of Olds. And Joel was there. He was like the main headline speaker and I was one of the little side speakers. But I met him and I talked to him about my vegetable farm. I've been listening to some of his podcasts and I'm fully inspired about what he did and how he did it. And yeah, he's a pretty cool hippie farmer and he makes it seem like anyone can do it. And quite frankly, I do think that anyone can do it. If you hire a coach, here's a little plug for Dawn. I do that. I coach people. I teach people how to grow and sell food, gardening to chickens to whatever. I can help you. Just send me a DM. That's a little plug. But anyways, I was listening to his podcast and he was saying like anyone can start off by being a farmer. You just got to start small and take off bite-sized pieces. And so after selling my empire, getting this property, I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to build these barns. That's a lot of, money put out for infrastructure that, can't really afford. And so I ended up getting some tarp sheds, those tarp sheds, those tarp grad sheds. So I picked up 2 of those and I put up a whole bunch of fencing, big pens, lots of space for the birds to go outside and inside. And yeah, I've just built like a little mini chicken farm. Currently, as of today, I have 600 birds on the property, which is a lot for a small space, but they're all happy and healthy. They're in their sheds. They're out in the pens. They're eating the grass. They're eating the bugs. They're, getting the water, and it's working really well. And so, yeah, the infrastructure didn't cost me a whole lot. And that's the point to farming, is sometimes you have to farmerize it. Sometimes you have to hippie it. When I had my farm, I took half the roof off of my old pig barn and I turned it into what I called my hippie house. And it was just a greenhouse that I grew lots of lettuce in. And so same thing here. I'm applying those same principles that I applied when I had my big farm to this small farm. I'm just working with the materials and the things that I have to make it work. They're not expensive. I'm making it, it's not pretty. I'll tell you right now, it's not pretty. My farmyard is not pretty. It is not picture perfect. It is not Pinterest ready. It is, I was thinking I should do an Instagram post of me doing chores sometime because I'm like, fuck this and fuck that. And, normal homesteading posts are all pretty and the woman's in her dress and she's doing chores and she's loving on her animals. Well, I'll tell you the reality of doing chores when I'm tired, after a 16-hour day, after I've been at a farmer's market all day, it is not always pretty. And the chickens will get out and the goats will get out and the pigs will get out. And I'm out there saying, fucking bitch, just go where you need to go. And I'm fully here to admit that, sometimes it's not pretty. It's just functional. We're just doing what we need to do. And I'm doing my work. And yeah, I have a bit of a temper, and those chickens, I don't know if I'm aggressive with my words, not with my actions, if that makes sense. I gotta let it out somehow.
Do you remember the toilet paper wars of 2020? Are you worried about being prepared in an emergency? Are you tired of being a slave to the corporations we purchase from? It's time to take control. Become ungovernable. Take your food system into your own hands. Hi, I'm Dawn, a coach dedicated to helping you live like grandma used to. Self-reliant, resourceful, and prepared. Whether it's raising chickens, growing a garden, canning your own food, or even milking a cow, I'll teach you how to thrive and survive in the space you have, big or small. We can even potentially make some money off your homestead. Visit Dawn's Dirt today to book your free jumpstart call. Together, as a team, we can get you self-reliant and ungovernable. We, the people, have the power to take back control. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Let's build a better future and a community, one skill set at a time.
I built this little homestead here. I've got 600 chickens. Let me talk about my brooders. So I was supposed to, that's the thing on a homestead too. You have to realize that not everything goes your way. Not everything goes to plan. So I got my meat birds 9 weeks ago. They should have been butchered last week. So they should have been butchered this past Wednesday. And here we are, it's Sunday night and they're still not butchered and I still have them all. And, trying to figure out how to keep them for one more week. The Cornish giants, they grow so big. They grow so fast and so big, but I chose to butcher 1 week late as opposed to 1 week earlier. I'm going to get bigger meat birds and I'm going to have more pounds on those birds. And so hopefully that'll pencil out into a few more dollars into my pocket. Because the people that I am hiring to do the butchering, they couldn't get to it until this week. And so, yeah, I'm stuck with my birds for one more week. It's totally fine. It's totally good. And then my hatchery called up and they said, Dawn, you've got 300 chicks coming. We've got 300 extra chicks a week early. Would you be willing to take your baby chicks a week early? And I was like, yep, I'll figure it out. And that's the thing with farming. And that's the thing with homesteading is you just figure it out. I've been saying I'll figure it out for many, many years. I'm actually really good, really, really, really good at figuring it out. I said it to my ex-husband all the time. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. And I do every freaking time I figure it out. And so I had these 300 chicks coming the next day and I'm like, oh shoot, I don't have a brooder. And so I thought to myself, how am I going to keep these chicks warm? Yes, it's summertime. Yes, it's warm outside, but chicks need 29 degrees. They don't need 15. They don't need 20. They need 29 degrees consistently. That's what chicks need to survive. If you don't have the right temperature, you've got dead chicks. Simple as that. And so I thought, man, how am I going to contain all these chicks in a smaller space, but not too small because 300 is a lot of birds. And so I thought to myself, what am I going to do? And so I thought, 4 sheets of plywood. So I grabbed 4 sheets of plywood from the local hardware store. I put edges on them, corners on them. I screwed them together so that they formed a box. I had someone come in and help me build a gate. So that I could get in and out. And so my brooder house is 8 by 8 by 8, shavings on the bottom. Use shavings, don't use newspaper. They'll slip on newspaper. So shavings on the bottom. And then I put 4 heat lamps in there, 4. I borrowed 2 from a friend and I had 2 myself. And so I put 4 heat lamps in there. And so the chicks actually can go away from the heat lamp if they're too hot and they'll go underneath the heat lamp if they're not warm enough. And I put in a big waterer, a full-size waterer, because I thought, man, those little plastic waterers I'll be watering them 14 times a day if I do that. So I put the big full-size waterer in and I thought, man, it's a little deep. Like, what are we going to do? I don't want the chicks to drown because, chicks are stupid. Chickens are stupid. Just so you know, turkeys are even more stupid, but chicks are really stupid. So I grabbed some stones and I put them just in the bottom of my waterer and I filled the waterer up and so the stones just kept the water from not being so deep and the chicks could just get to it. And I got some bigger feeders and that's my brooder. It's, I put a tarp on top to hold the heat in. The first night that I had my chicks, it actually got down to 3 degrees or something like that overnight. And I was like, oof, that's going to be really quite chilly. My brooder is actually inside one of my big sheds as well. And, yeah, but it worked. And I've had a couple of losses. If you're going to have live animals, you're going to have dead animals. It's just the way it is. So expect that on a homestead, just expect that. And yes, I had to put down a chick. There was a chick that just wasn't doing well. It was suffering. And yeah, I had to do the deed. I had to put it down. And so it's not always pretty on a homestead. And so, yeah, that's my chick story that I had. So now I've got these, 150 laying hens. I've got my meat birds. I've got my full-size meat birds. And then I've got my baby chicks. Oh, and yeah, it's just like, welcome to my funny farm. I'm just doing what I got to do. And here's the thing, off of all of these birds, this is something to remember. I want to get back into farming. I need to turn a bit of a profit. It's not going to be a huge profit, but it's going to pay a little bit for my time. Yes, I'm probably working for minimum wage, but it's better than working for someone else. And so I would much rather work for minimum wage and put in long, long hours working for myself on my own homestead, on my own farm, making a little bit of money than working and collecting a paycheck from someone else. So again, if you want to get into homesteading and you want to get into farming, be prepared to work long hours. Like I said, it is after 11 at night. I came in the house, from doing all my chores, and I'm recording this podcast now. It is hard work, but I love it. I go to bed tired at the end of the day, and I sure do earn my shower in the meantime. So you can't tell it, but I've got dirt all over me. I actually was doing my chores in my bikini today, which was kind of fun. I got a big sunburn, and yeah, you work hard on a homestead. And I love it. So I'm going to earn, actually, I think by the time I'm done with all my chickens and all my eggs and all the birds this year, I think I'm actually going to gross probably around that $25,000 this year. And so that's not a small number. That is me being a brand new farmer. That's not a tiny number. It actually would put me back into, I'm here in Alberta, Canada, and it puts me back into farm status again, which is what I wanted. In Alberta, we have these little green stickers on the back of your license plate. And, when I sold the farm, I got my little stickers taken away. I had to re-register all my vehicles, to not have those little stickers. And so by making that money, I can get my little farm status back again. And so that'll be a feat. That'll be an accomplishment. And that'll be, it'll be good to just get my feet back in farming again. I'm just going on tangents here. So we was talking about my brooders. I was talking about my laying hens. I'm not even following my notes. So let's talk about feed. So I have all of these meat chickens and I have all of these laying hens. And when I was getting back into business this year, I thought to myself, what am I going to feed these birds? Now, I've never done meat chickens organically before, but I have done laying hens organically. And so I was trying to decide, am I going to feed them organic feed or am I going to feed them just regular feed? And I actually decided on the conventional feed. And here's why. When I had my farm, when I had my 299 chickens on my former farm, I've done it both ways. I've done organic feed and I have done conventional feed. And let me tell you this, the organic feed is higher in price and your production actually drops. And the reason for that is organic feed is not always necessarily perfect. It's not getting the right protein content that you need in the feed. And they might be missing some, trace minerals and nutrients and supplements and things like that. So my production, when I had my farm, my egg production dropped and my feed costs went up. When I had my farm, I was able to do that because, eggs weren't my main source of income. I didn't actually really need to make money on it. It was just a great way to have people come into my booth. It was something I could do for people. So when I raised my chickens organically, I broke even on them. Maybe I made, 50 cents a dozen, but I broke even on them. And that's okay. But now doing what I'm doing this year, I can't afford to. I can't afford to work for 50 cents a dozen. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, then there's no point to doing it. And so I chose to do the conventional route. And so I'm buying my feed from a local feed supply place that makes it, actually. And my feed costs are reasonable. And yeah, I'm actually able to make some money off my eggs. I chose my favorite farmer's market. I'm at Canmore Farmer's Market this year, and I'm selling my eggs at $10 a dozen. And some people would say, whoa, $10 a dozen. My chickens are Lohman Brown. I got them at 12 weeks. I paid $13 a bird. I got them in the end of April. They were laying right away. And yeah, like $10 a dozen pays for my fuel It pays for my time. It pays for my feed. And it puts, a couple of pennies in my pocket. And here I am starting over a single mama. And yeah, I have to pay myself something. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm feeding them conventional feed. My yolks, again, on these chickens, on these eggs they're nice orange. And it's because my chickens actually escaped the pen. I was at the farmer's market the other day, and a girl, she came up and she really was questioning me, which is so important. Ask lots of questions at farmers markets. And she was questioning me on how I was raising my chickens, what I was feeding them, where I kept them, where they slept. And she said, "Do you have videos in your phone?" And I said, "Absolutely, I do." And so I went scrolling through my phone and I found some videos and I found some pictures and I showed her the chickens, and she was totally happy with that. And so that's a little side note. When you go to a farmer's market, just ask the questions and ask for the videos. Like, that's part of the transparency. And so I told her what I fed them, and most people are just okay with it. So I'm advertising my eggs as farm fresh eggs. And another little side note here, when I set up my booth in the farmer's market, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to put in my booth to attract people to me? I'm a bit of a loud lady, so I say hello to everybody that walks past my booth. So if you want to get into farmers market sales, I actually coach on that as well. But listen up, here's some tidbits of advice. So I try to say hello to every single person that walks past my booth. That's the goal. Hello, hello, hello. Can I tell you about my eggs? It used to be, can I tell you about my tomatoes? Now it's, can I tell you about my eggs? And my signage says farm fresh eggs. It says Dawn's Dirt farm fresh eggs. So simple. But even still, I wanted something more. And so I was thinking to myself, what could I bring as a hook to get people into my booth to sell these eggs? And I was thinking, maybe I can buy some pretty flowers. Maybe I can, put up a nice banner. And I thought to myself, like, that's kind of boring. Those are not fun things. And then I thought to myself, I'm going to just bring some chickens. So I got myself a little dog crate and I threw a couple chickens in there and I brought chickens to the farmer's market. And so what am I saying to people when I'm standing there? Can you imagine this? Farm fresh eggs, and can you imagine farm animals at the farmer's market? And people just flock to my booth. And once you get a line, it draws. Once you get a crowd, it draws more of a crowd. And yeah, I'm selling out of eggs a couple hours before the market's even done. And I was talking to the market manager, and I said, "I'm sold out yet again." And she said, "Well, you have to bring more next week." And I said, I only have 150 chickens. How am I supposed to bring more? It's not like I'm buying and selling them. Like, I have what I have, and next year it's apparent I have to grow my flock and get more chickens. So that's the thing is, when it comes to farming and farmers market and farm to table sales, like, you have what you have, and when it's gone, it's gone. And so it's pretty fun. And I couldn't just pile my eggs up. I have to keep them in coolers and keep them, nice and to Alberta Health Services standards, and to be able to sell them at the farmer's market. And so I have 12 eggs out, and I have the chickens to draw, and I have my chickens to draw people in, and the chickens behaved really well. Even the first dog that ran up, I was like, "Ooh, this might not go over very well." And yeah, it was fine. The chickens were so used to my dog because the chickens get out all the time. And so people ask, where are your chickens? And I said, they're in buildings, in my sheds, and in my big pens, and they eat the scraps. And I said, in all honesty and in all transparency, this year, my garden sucks this year because those freaking chickens, they get out all the time. And they're going into my garden and they're eating my garden. So here I am, Dawn's Dirt. I coach on gardening, and my garden's a piece of shit right now because the chickens are eating it all. But that's part of having a homestead. It's not all pretty, and it's not all fun, and it's not all games. And so yeah, that's my little story about farmers markets and chickens. And So let's get into my meat birds. So I've done meat birds before. Now, meat birds can be kind of finicky. I'm growing the Cornish Giants because they get those really nice big breasts. I'm raising Lohman Browns. That's my laying hens. I'm not raising heritage breeds. I have a few heritage breeds, but I'm not raising heritage breeds. I'm raising Lohman Browns because they produce the most amount of eggs. I'm there for production. I'm there to make money. I'm there to provide eggs for the people and eggs for my family. And so same thing with the Cornish Giants. You can get different breeds of meat birds and different heritage breeds or dual purpose breeds that work well. But again, when you're trying to raise birds for money, meat birds for money, those Cornish Giants are just going to do the job the best. They're going to turn the feed that I feed them into great meat in the least amount of time possible. And so the feed meat conversion on a Cornish Giant is going to be your highest. Yes, they're a little finicky. Yes, in hot weather, I had a couple drop dead of a heart attack today. Again, I can't say it enough. If you're going to have livestock, you're going to have dead stock. And so it's part of being a farmer. It's not all fun and games. It's not all pretty. And I made sure they had water in there today. I made sure they were cooled off today. I did everything in my power, but it was hot outside and I got a sunburn because I was working my bikini and I had a chicken die. So part of being a farmer. And yeah, so I'm feeding my Cornish Giants just regular feed. Oh, back to the chicks. I get a little squirrely. So, welcome to Dawn's Dirt, where I act like a squirrel and I go off on a tangent and I go off on a rampage. And I just want to share about feed again. So I'm feeding my meat birds just regular grower ration. And so it will take those meat birds and get them the best gain. And the feed is really important because if you don't give them the right feed, they're not going to grow the right way and they're not going to get the nutrients that they need. They're not going to get what they need out of their feed. And you're going to even have a higher mortality rate. So feeding your chickens proper feed is extremely important. Back to my chicks, I actually feed my chicks medicated feed. And you can go, oh, there's medication and whatever. If I don't, I'm going to have a higher death loss. And so I don't get my chicks vaccinated. I tend to be a little wary of vaccinations and things like that. The hatchery that I use, you can order unvaccinated chicks and they ship them right to your door through the mail. And so I feed them the medicated feed just for those critical first week or two, just to give them the legs they need. And then by the time we get, 6 weeks after that, that medicated feed is out of their system. It's not in their system anymore. That's long gone, pooped out, And so, yeah, I just feed regular conventional feed. Honest about it. And that's the thing when you're doing farm to table sales, just be honest. I'm not following the Joel Salatin things. He's very organic and crunchy and I actually respect it and I really like it and I appreciate it. And he's able to do it, but just on my small farm for this year, I needed it to pencil out a little different. And so, yeah, I'm just using regular conventional feed. Because I don't have the wiggle room this year to play with it and be organic either. So getting back into business, I chose Canmore Farmers Market because I built relationships with those customers. So many people walked up to me and they hugged me and they said, "Oh, you're back. It's so good to see you. And you were the tomato lady and now you're the egg lady." And so, yeah, it's about the relationship. Relationship at farmers markets is so important and relationship from the farm to the table. It's about the relationship. And so getting into farm to table sales, getting back into this whole chicken business, I want to do the same thing. I want to build the relationship. And so the first week that I went to farmers markets, I didn't have my debit machine. It wasn't working. I couldn't figure it out. It's technology. Tech is not my thing. And I didn't know what to do. And so the first couple customers walked up. I said, "Oh, it's cash only. I can't figure out this machine and not sure what I'm doing. And it's cash only." And they would say, "Oh, I don't have cash." And I'd say, "Well, tell you what, take the eggs home. You owe me the $10. You remember it and come back and pay me, the next time you're around for more eggs." And yeah, it works. I've done that several times. I used to do it with my vegetables all the time, and I've gotten money back. I even had one woman with vegetables one time. It was probably 6 months later. She said, I bought vegetables at least 6 months ago and I still owe you this money. So here you are. And that's the thing. It's what goes around comes around, and it's about the relationship. And so, yeah, it's been pretty cool to get back into business. And food security and the food system is so important. Like, we need to protect our small farmers. And that's why I feel called to get back into farming. It's who I am fundamentally as a human being. It's part of my identity as being a farmer. And so I feel completely called to get back into the business. And as I was thinking about what can I do, I don't have enough space for beef. I don't have enough space for sheep. I miss my sheep a lot. I don't have enough space for a big herd, big pen of pigs. I hate my pigs. I've got 2 pigs. I really don't like them. I really don't want to get back into pigs. Anyways, pigs, no more pigs for me. Do pigs for you on a small scale, but no more pigs for me. Pasture raised pigs work really well. If you have the space, if you can milk cows and feed the milk to the pigs, that works really well as well. But on my size, my scale, in the space I have, pigs is not working. It's trial and error. That's farming too, trial and error. And so I just knew that eggs and meat chickens, that's the way to go in the space I have. And I'm on, honestly, about an acre of land here, and I'm going to pull in $25,000 gross this summer. So it's about business. It's about tic-tac-tician, knowing your numbers, penciling it all out, figuring out what's going to work, figuring out who your customer is or who your teammates are, and building a business back around it. And so, yeah, pretty excited to be back in the farming industry. So whether you have 20 chickens or you have 150 laying hens, it's honestly all about the same amount of work. You're filling up the feeders, you're filling up the waterers. One extra feeder and one extra waterer is not a big deal. Chores are taking me about an hour a day. I do my chores once a day because I've got the big enough feeders and big enough waterers that I can handle all these birds. And I've got it down to a system. I feed and water this flock, and then I feed and water this flock, and then I feed and water the next flock. And yeah, chores are about an hour a day, and which isn't crazy. Like, that's not a crazy amount of time. Where the time is coming in for me right now is washing eggs. So that's, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour every day. If I do it every day, sometimes I slack and I do it every couple of days, and then it's a whole lot longer. But it's my downtime. I put a little show on my phone and I wash my eggs. And the other day I even listened to a Zoom meeting while I was washing my eggs. And so it's just about doing what you need to do and making fun of it. And yeah, just like, if you looked at my hands right now, I've been fencing because those freaking chickens get out all the time. But like, my hands have perma-dirt on them. They are permanently dirty. I got this scratch on some chicken wire the other day, so I haven't even been able to use this middle finger. It's been pretty crazy, but yeah, I've got farmer hands. I've got good looking nails, but farmer hands, because I've been working really hard. And so, but whether you have 50 birds or you have 150 birds, it's about the same amount of work. You're still going to be doing your chores. You're still going to be feeding. You're still going to be watering. And so, same thing. I had 200 meat chickens the first go around. I've got 300 this time. It's not that much more work. And so it's about scaling up in size. Now, depending on where you are, if you're in the States, there's different rules. But here in Canada, I can only have 299 laying hens. And I think it's 3,000 meat birds. That's the size I can get to before I have to buy quota. What's quota, you say? What's the government bureaucracy that says you're only allowed to do so much? And it's millions of dollars in order to be able to have the privilege of raising chickens or raising eggs or whatever it is. So I have to stay below that threshold. But, by the time I get 299 laying hens, it's not that much work, but I'll double the money again. So And then I'm only going to do about 700 meat birds this year. So that gives me a whole lot of room for a whole lot more meat birds for next year. So I can scale my little farm up.
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement.
So when it comes to your homestead and when it comes to your small farm and when it comes to your new farm to table business, think of it exactly that. I've seen the biggest mistake I've seen homesteaders make when they want to do farm to table sales is they get their ideologies involved and they get all their, it should be this way and it should be that way and it has to be organic and it has to be heritage breeds and it has to be this and it has to be that. Well, you know what? It doesn't always pencil out. And so the ideologies and having a lack of business sense is actually what hurts the small farm or the small homestead in farm to table sales. And so make sure you tic-tac-tician your numbers. Make sure you know what you're selling your product for. Make sure you know your costs that are going to go into it. For the past 3 weeks at the farmers market, people have been saying, how much is your meat birds going to be? How much are your meat birds going to be? How much are your meat birds going to be? And I keep saying, I actually don't know because I don't know what all my costs are going to be. And I don't know how many pounds of chicken I'm going to get off of these meat birds. So I don't know. And that's a very fair answer. And so this Wednesday, after I get all my meat chickens back, I'm going to take all my costs, take it all into consideration. I have a rough number in mind, but I'm going to take it all in, take all the numbers in, tic-tac-tician it out, and then I will come up with a price per pound for my meat birds. That's the only way to do it, is know what your costs are and know what your expenses are, and then, know what your time is worth. Even though it's not going to be worth a lot. It's, maybe $15 an hour, maybe a little less in some cases, maybe a little more in some cases, but you're going to get paid something, and that's farming, is you get paid something. That's why farming's a game of scale. And so, yeah, you need to plan ahead. You need to know what your costs are, and you need to tic-tac-tician your business out. And you need to start small. You need to start with, chickens, and then get into laying hens, and then get into meat birds, and then you can add in something else. If you're going to do garden, I always suggest to people, if you're going to do garden, start with a handful of items and do them really well. So in your homestead, do a handful of items, do them really well, and then use the money you make and invest it right back into your farm. That's farming, is you invest right back into your farm. And so don't bite off more than you can chew. And that's the biggest lesson in knowing how to make your farm or homestead sales work. Yeah. And just don't scale up until your systems are dialed in. I got 200 meat chickens the first time around, and I've got 300 this time. I have learned so much. My loss rate this time around is going to be way less than the first time around because I'm in a new shed system with, new fencing and pen system. And I've made mistakes. I've honestly made mistakes. My one big mistake is with my tarp sheds. They didn't have the ventilation that they needed. So there were several mornings I went out and it was like rain inside these sheds. And I was like, what is going on? And it's because they weren't ventilated properly. And so my chickens were getting a little bit warm. Condensation was, going higher inside the shed. And so what did I do? I pulled down part of the wall and pulled down part of the other wall and just made it a little cooler in there for them. And yeah, my losses started to go down again. And so next time around, I'm going to rip those walls out. I'm not even going to have the walls. We're in summertime here in Alberta. I don't even need the walls. Once they're out of the brooder, they can handle it. I'll have the heat lamps and so they can crawl under there again. But, I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to learn from my system, and I'm going to scale when I'm able to. I started with 150 laying hens this year. I bought them in at 12 weeks old or 18 weeks old or whatever they were. I bought them in as laying hens, and I'm going to use them for the summer, and I'm going to sell them off in the winter. I don't want chickens in the winter. Chickens in the winter, I don't have the facility. I don't have the space. I don't have the heat system. I can't do it. Your days get shorter, so your egg production drops. And so, yeah, I'm going to sell all my chickens off in the fall and start fresh next spring. But I started with 150 this year. I had the number 200 put into when I bought my chickens, I had 200 put in, and I was like, I wasn't sure. And I dropped it to 150, and I'm kind of glad I did in some ways. Kind of glad I, maybe coulda, woulda, shoulda. But next year I can probably jump to 300, just because I needed to figure it out again. So just start small and work your way up, know your numbers, and yeah. Chickens are the way to go. If you want to build a little farm to table business, my first suggestion, honestly, is gardening. Do gardening and do vegetables. And my second suggestion is chickens. Chickens are a really easy way to start farming, farm to table for food. So I guess to recap all of this, yeah. I'm homesteading this year, farming, whatever you want, small scale farming. It's all I know. It's what I want to get into. It's all I want to be. It's who I fundamentally am as a human being, and watch me fly. I'm building my next empire. So I'll get these chickens under wraps, and then, maybe I'll rent some land next year and I'll do some sheep. I don't know where the world's going to take me. I don't know where my farm is going to take me, but I just know that, I'm having fun doing it, and I feel alive. I feel like I've got purpose again. I lost my purpose when I sold my farm, and, becoming the egg lady is my new purpose. And so thanks for listening to me on this episode of Dawn's Dirt, chatting all about chickens and my chicken sagas and my chicken craziness and my fuck you chickens, when they're getting out and they're eating my garden. So thanks for listening to me. If you have questions or comments, put it in the chat, share this episode, do something with it, and if you really need help learning about farm to table sales, and if you want to know more about like how to make money off your property or save money on your property or how to all figure it out, I know how to figure it out. So send me a message, give me a DM, let's chat. And I'm a homestead coach, and I can teach you and walk you through your homestead journey as well. So thanks for listening to me, and bye.